Maybe some of you are not, but I guess some of you are designers. But I won't be a source of surprise, but as designer, we are designing the value. Who has to do what, when, and why? So for example, Clara has to book a room next week for the family holiday. What kind of experience can she get? On the website or in the hotel? Is it going to be a premium? She'll be granted with a small cocktail upon arrival? Or maybe she's blind and just in need of assistance. In the hotel, but also on the website. What kind of experience do we provide for our customers? So we know a lot of recipes to get to the bottom of these questions, like the double diamonds and other frameworks. But it's maybe me or the endless meetings I had to endure that I was not able to convey my thought process, my energy, my way of thinking to the stakeholders, and therefore enable them to relate to what I'm saying. Now you can enjoy the next slide. Everywhere we look, we can see stories. From the overwhelming numbers of content platforms to maybe advertisements, we can see stories everywhere. Use that perfume and you become the hot rod of ladies. That's the story we were sold many times. So in the end, it seems like we all have something to share, something to tell. And even social media paradigm is built around that core concept. And for example, Facebook and the stories, they put that to the letters. But in the end, that does make us specialists of stories. Since our childhood, we were told bedtime stories. Can you recall? But we can trace that really, really far further than that. 100,000 years ago. That's minimalist, huh? So we started learning language. We developed human language. And we used that to transfer knowledge from human being to human being. That's where storytelling was born. A bit later than that, 20,000 years ago, we used cave painting, new forms of way of transferring knowledge. A bit later than that, 3,500 years ago. That's not so far anymore, but we invented text. That's when we started to transfer knowledge with text. And what happened 35 years ago?
Internet.
Ah, no. But you're close. PowerPoint was born. let's put the... Yeah, that's the way. That's actually the proper date of PowerPoint. Thank you, Microsoft. But let's put that joke aside. But it can well be understood as the birth of the visual language as we have today. In 2020, during the quarantines, Netflix reported that we, on average, all of us watch 3.2 hours of content. So we have watched countless movies and TV shows. Countless. You have to just figure out at 3.2 hours per day. That's a lot of stories that have unfolded before our eyes and ears. So I can only assume that our brain has adapted to that methodology, and it is maybe our way to understand the world, each other, around us, and it is the way we connect to each other, make us laugh, and it's maybe part of our DNA. We are all born with a natural talent to listen to stories, but also to tell stories. That's who we are as a species. So maybe let's... Oh, we have a guest. There is for people on the internet, there is a cat just walking in. So let's leverage a bit that inner knowledge to gather things on how to craft a design story. It comes down to the story to introduce you to that. So about 3 months ago, I received a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter who knew. And it goes like that. I found the best job offering for you. When I received it, I thought of you. You can relate to that. It's part of a story I told you today. When I received it, I thought of you. I had to get in touch with you. It's maybe one of the best job offering I got over a long time, maybe over my career. That's bold, huh? I was hooked. I wanted to know more. I wanted to get in touch with him and to see what he has found. Because in the end, sorry BNP, I will have to go. I will have to go. The job offering of a lifetime just come to my door. What can you do? So we arranged a short call in the next few days. It turns out the amazing job is in the innovation management solution for the poultry. The poultry, the chicks. So what I understood is that they put a lot of sensors in a warehouse, they have a lot of chicks, and they gather a lot of data to make them grow faster, better, stronger. What's interesting? But I had to decline. Why? Because I'm mostly vegetarian these days. So in the end, I won't be able to relate to my subject and go on day after day. That's it. To be able to relate to subjects, you will have to put time and energy. It will take your energy. You have to put effort in that. And for that, you need to care. You won't be able to defend your customers, your user, if you're not passionate or unable to relate to the experience. Draw from it, capture a truth from experiencing it, from researching it. Anyway, you just have to experience it or research it, and you find a truth. And from that truth, you express the value you feel down your core. And once you have owned your piece, you have find a good way to represent what your customer wants and their experience, you just make your stakeholder care. On a 3 level, emotionally, intellectually, and aesthetically. You just make them care. That's the end game. Because in the end, our work will only make it into a product if we can make our stakeholder care and commit. Without commitment, any advice given is merely an expression of opinion. So it's like Microsoft and Google and every other major product. If you're not able to make your customers, your stakeholders care and commit, because commitment is really important and it's key. You can have a product that goes for a long time. If the customer, the stakeholder doesn't commit to the end to produce that, you just work for nothing. It will go to graveyard. Andrew Stanton, do you know who it is? No? He's really a well-known author, American, I reckon. He's the one behind Finding Nemo. You have heard about that. He's behind the story of Toy Story. So really a great author. It goes like that. Storytelling is like joke telling. And why is that? It's knowing your punchline, your ending, knowing that everything you say from the first sentence to the last will lead to a singular goal that's, in the end, ideally confirming some truth about who we are as a human being. That's the end game, huh? You just want stakeholders to find a story, make them understand that story, care for that story, just to highlight what it is to be a human. So, now, a bit stretch of your imaginations. You want to go to a movie, to a theater, with your friends, your loved ones, whoever you want. And you are comfortable on that chair. You really have the nice coffee sofa, the red one. Big carpet on the floor. It's really comfortable. And then the light starts to dim. And the curtains opens and the lights go dim. Once upon a time, a character, a mood, and a place. For the first few scenes, you get used to the narrative. So that's the beginning of a story. And now, from the animation industry comes the unifying theory of 2 + 2. The case is pretty simple. You just give 4, you give 2 + 2. Your stakeholder are the same as you on the sofa. They want to get an introduction to the subject. They want to know the work you have done, why you have done it, what the key result, What lead you there? You just create an understanding of who the audience is and the struggle they're experiencing. Before even showing a glimpse of your design, you lay the path for them to follow you. That's the key result, huh? So you need to make your audience put things together, let them work, let them do the work, let them understand the path you've been through, what you have put together. You don't give the bluntly outcome, and you just create a momentum before the big reveal. The element you provide, oh, someone coming in, a bit late for the party. So the element you provide and the order you place them in is crucial to whether you succeed or fail at engaging your audience. Always a simple recipe. Just find something you care. How is it related to your customers, your audience, the one you are speaking for, and then find the passion to defend them. And then you find some research, you find an end game, and then you make them care, make your stakeholder care. And to make them care, you just provide the path you've been through. That's pretty easy in the end. So now you have a topic, you have something you can relate to, you have a drive, you have passion. Let's talk about who you're going to talk to. Let's talk about stakeholder management. That's the scary slide from the bunch. You have a lot of words, but don't worry, we will break it down shortly. The first one is that over time, you're going to speak to a lot of different people. The crowd will evolve. At the start of project, you have someone explaining what they want to do, the strategy, the end game of the project, what they want to achieve. Then you're going to speak to a business analyst. You're going to speak to any other type of persons. So, and then in the end, maybe you're going to speak to a developer. Maybe you're going to be discussing with a colleague who is doing tests. But over time, the people you speak to will evolve. So the first things you have to do whenever the project starts and at some regular basis, establish a basic list of who you're talking to. To help you with that, some questions to ask. So for those, it's going to be a keeper. But that's everything you need to know to find out who you're going to be talking to. In the end, if you answer all these questions and you have names, and if you don't have name for one, it's okay. Huh? Maybe nobody signs off of the project. Huh? So first, establish that basic list. Who's going to be talking to? And then find out what they have to do with the project. What their interests, expectations, involvement, independencies. What are their relationship with the project? Why they are there? What they expect from the project? So list of people, and then why are they in the first place in the project? Then just a sanity check. Just please confirm that you have the company goal, the department goal, and the project goal. Sometimes it can be mixed. And so you just want to make sure that everyone aligns on the same principles. And once you have identified your stakeholders, it's time to really know what drives them. Develop the communication bridge. You have that beautiful list of people, but maybe you don't know them. You are not used to work with them. It depends on if you are in a big company with a lot of people, or maybe in a small startup, but at some point you have to develop the communication bridge. Know the people you're talking to. Maybe grab a coffee with them or spend lunch with them. It's not super fancy. Eh? You just create a relationship. Improve the relationship, earn trust, because trust must be earned and deserved. You must do something in order for the other people to place their trust in you. It's not going to happen by magic. They need to know that you are reliable and you want to do the job and you want to do it properly. They will be listened. So it's a human problem. So next step is to really encourage you to think about the person you have in front of you. You have gathered a lot of knowledge so far. You have the list, you have the interest, why they are in the project, and you have been lunching with them, you have been taking coffee. So you have gathered a bit of who they are as a person, as a human being. So next step is what is going to wow them, what's going to be amazing for them. Show them that you understand the feedback, you have processed that, and acknowledge that. You want to always exceed your stakeholders' expectation. How to do that? First one is communication, no exceptions. That's the key. First, equations, communication, no exceptions. That's easy, again, to remember. On a regular basis, communicate your progress. End of the week, middle of the week, every time it suits you. PO, sorry, I wasn't able to finish my work because, hey, I need a user test next week, but I need to plan that. I have a small delay because I didn't find this user, or this user is not able to come in. Just communicate with all the stakeholders. What is the outcome they can expect from you? What's your timeline? What's your angle? What are you doing? When are you going to deliver? And maybe some PO will tell you that it's not going well with his timeline, and just accommodate for that, and you can start the discussion. But because you have established that communication bridge, you have taken coffee with the guy, you can just discuss that with a friend almost. It's just a human problem. We all want to get our job done and get it in the end. So at some point, maybe some people, some stakeholders will express some personal goals. It happens. If you don't manage to get to that expectation, to meet that expectations, you have failed in their eyes. That's important because the smaller the gap you can make between the expected value and the delivered value, the more successful you are. And maybe that stakeholders, in the end, is the big shot. And maybe you won't renew your project, your contract in the end because you did not meet the expectation he set. And maybe the expectation he set is just his own. It's not the project, it's not the department, it's not the company. Just figure it out. That's why it's so important to know on what level you are playing with the stakeholders. What do they want and how is it important to the project? And so, in the end, just create a relationship and just maybe not rely solely on written communication because you won't be able to develop that connection. Second one is no surprise. No surprises at all. If something goes well, if something goes bad, you don't want your stakeholders to know that from other one than you. You just want to get forward of the issues. You want to let them know if something goes well, if something goes bad. And even more true if there is actions or something dependent on that. Because maybe you don't know that you have an impact on someone else's job. So just no surprise. Third one is to tailor your communications. Just be purposeful. Communicate the relevant informations at the right time for the right person. Just think about who you have in front of you. What does he expect? You should never dump every piece of information you have found. So you have done an amazing job of research. You are really passionate about it. You are really proud of your work. Just find out that the CEO doesn't want to know every piece of detail. For these kind of people with importance and a lot, an agenda that is so booked, just maybe highlight some piece of information they need to know, they need to act upon. Just find out, tune your communications based on who you're talking to. If you provide too much information, they might start to tune you out. That's not a good thing as well. Huh? And it's really difficult to get back from that. So just avoid talk. Just try to be purposeful. Well, that's very true. Huh? We all know that. Huh? We all seen the movies where there is a strange voice with a dark voice like speaks really weirdly and will tell you that everything's gonna be okay. But what does that mean? Is that you just to make it enjoyable. Make sure that you stakeholders have a good time. That's all. You don't have to be boring. It's not because you're talking about data and you have a lot of graph to show that you need to make it boring and have the same speech for every slide. Just tailor to make it really pleasant for everyone. And so this guy, David G.P. Phillips, he has made really a career about storytelling and how to coach people, how storytelling. He has made a couple of talks on TED Talks to watch if you want. So in the end, I speak a lot. What will you remember of your day today? Not just me, but everything you have done today. You will remember only 5%. That's small. 5% will make it to your memory. So every time you speak to your stakeholders, only 5% make it to their memory. But you can make it to 65. That's a huge gain. From 5 to 65. How to do that is to wrap your story around a moment, an event. It's basic emotion, actually. If you wrap your story around an experience, they start to remember it. And it is also valuable for the visual story, because now our job is mostly about visual story. So it's not just about the PowerPoint you want to design and have a good slides and have a nice data representation. It's just maybe the way we present the marketing teams, or maybe just the UX team. Just providing the way you provide information can be really valuable as well. So my advice to you is to really put your stakeholders at the edge of their seat, because you are still on the movies. You're still on the sofa with on the movies. So you want to put them at the edge of their seats to really allow them to be part of the story, to be part of the event, so they can really anticipate the rest of the story. They really are an actor of the things you are creating. So I told you before, you are designing the value, but in the end, you are selling an emotions to your stakeholders. And that's what they will remember. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alexandre. I think it was a very nice approach. Let's go with the questions. Do we have any questions? I know I have one. Go ahead.
Perhaps could you give like an example that you've recently experienced in which you approached your storytelling differently to your stakeholders or kept them in mind?
Yeah. Okay. I have a project that is for BNP that is tailored to an audience that has a lot of money. And that audience, so I was approached to the project, and we have a lot of insight to give them on how to invest, for example. And so we approached one project for that customers, that specific customers. And it turns out during user testing that I find it also the way they behave. I find it something strange. And every stat I got from the analytics teams was not able to make me understand why it is so weird the way the user behave. And so I asked another couple of data because I had some feelings, gut feelings about what's happening. And it turns out the audience we're aiming for is 55 years plus. So it's really a specific demographic. And so the result they were not able to obtain over the years is because they were targeting the wrong demographic. They were supposed to leverage an average amount of investors, so you can expect from 30 to maybe 75 plus. But in the end, it turns out the demographic they were aiming for, it's 55 plus. So that's the data I gather. And from that perspective, I really try to make the shift in the business. To say, okay, maybe in the design, this feature you have planned, that's maybe not relevant for the customers. maybe that way of implementing the UI, because we have a lot of small text, but we are targeting 55 plus, they won't be able to read it. It's not they're not interested, because the data show they don't use it, so we can assume that it does not make relevance for the customer, but not. Maybe it's just because they don't see it. So it's just the way you tailor the informations and the way you present that to your stakeholders. And so now every time I have a meeting with them, I just ask them, do you want to go for the full community or you want to go tailored for another side of the segment? So you really start to shape the story because you know the demographic. You can really tailor that. And the rest obviously will come from that.
Any more questions? Anyone?
How do you see bad news to people? Do you have any approach there?
Oh, yeah. No, sometimes it's best to strip the scratch first. Just go for it. Just bluntly. No, one time I had these big meetings with a lot of people, important people, and they wanted to plan an advertisement marketing campaign, and it was targeted for the wrong audience again. And I told them, no, it won't work. Just like that. It is dumb. Just plenty dumb. Don't do that. Why? And then you have to be prepared for the why. And you have to be prepared about the sensitivity of people. Because you may say that bluntly, but you have the boomerang coming back to you. So just be prepared for that as well. So you have to have your argument before saying anything. So yeah, just strip the bandage the first chance you have.
In the online world now, a lot of presentations are given virtually. Do you have anything specific?
Yeah.
When presenting in such a medium.
Something I failed to add in the presentation is that don't forget about the demographic you have in front of you. So at some point we are mostly young. I will please myself. So we are in a specific audience, but maybe you are online and some people are physical. Maybe you are all online. Maybe it's going to be just the young generation. Maybe it's going to be old generation. It doesn't matter. When you have a meeting, it's going to be maybe just developers, and you have maybe a Scrum Master or whatever. Just be prepared on who you have in front of you. If I have a meeting, I just look at the list before going to meeting and see who is going to be there. Do I know him? What his functions? What is the impact of the project? And just recap before the meeting. It's 5 minutes before the meeting just to go over the list and say, okay, this guy. Okay, I know them. Okay, this one is new. Who is that? Okay, oh yeah, he's a business. Okay, I know what he wants. Just be prepared in between meetings. So you can tune the way you communicate with the stakeholders and obviously the communication bridge is not the same with people with a young age or old age, I would say. Just tune.
Bouncing back on that. Since when you start a project with maybe fresh stakeholders that by stalking them, you might not learn everything about them. How do you adapt to newcomers that you need, because the audience, targeting the audience is the key. How do you react on the first meeting with fresh stakeholders that you don't know or you have very few information?
Yeah, that's very true. One of the first meetings actually I got from BNP, Alain, for the first meeting I got in BNP, it was a crowd of 30 people. I didn't know anyone. It was full in Dutch. I don't speak Dutch. And I was saying, what am I doing here? And so I barely knew the subjects. I barely knew the topic of the project. So I didn't know anything about the topic and the people. So yeah, I had to adapt. So what you do, you just follow along and you play smart. That's amazing.
Smile, make them comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Hide your cards, hide your game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just sometimes poke a question or two just to understand and try to steer the discussions towards what you want. But it's going to be the first meetings when you need to introduce to people. You won't be able to know everyone. Obviously, in the big companies. In the small startup world, it's different because you should be able to know a lot of people. But for big companies, it can be a bit different than that.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe for the rest of the questions, we can handle them during the break. So let's have a short break, and then we will have Quarantine. Thank you.